bear in mind there's a few that have left the room. So J. Steve Berquist, Liz Forrest, Brad Merrill, Justin Gronendijk, Matthew Prochnow. Is there a Jennifer Tobin?
And just for the record, I do note that as we started transitioned into our public comment, a quorum is present. Council members Harity, Ahmad, Squilla, and myself are present to make up a quorum. Thank you. Please state your name and begin with your comment. Please, anyone? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Justin Grunendijk. I signed up to speak on two bills. I believe I was the only person who signed up for public comment on bill number 250770. That's the speed cameras bill. So I'd like to start with that, if that's all right.
If you could place your comment on all the bills you are here to testify on, please, that would be helpful.
All right.
Thank you.
So with regards to bill number 250770, my name is Justin Grunendijk. I live on the 1800 block of Pine Street, and I commute via bike and occasionally drive on several of the selected routes for speed cameras. I'm a pretty fast cyclist. In areas of those roads where the speed limit is 30 miles an hour, I'm often going 30 miles an hour on my bike, and yet there's still cars just blowing past me. And obviously that makes me feel very unsafe. I think we can all agree that Philadelphia drivers don't obey the speed limit. That's been talked about. And I just see my life get risked every day. We know that based on physics, the amount of damage from an accident increases with the square of the velocity. So that's exponential growth, which is typically faster than humans can imagine. That's how fast things grow exponentially. So that's a big problem to me. I'm also a licensed commercial pilot. One of the things they teach you when you're learning to be a commercial pilot is something called the normalization of deviance. This is what happens when breaking the rules becomes so common that it's considered normal. It's one of the most common causes of a disastrous plane crash, and I think it's also one of the most common causes of somebody getting killed by traffic violence in the city of Philadelphia. These speed cameras are a great way to break that. It's something that's consistent and something that's fair, as opposed to a police officer occasionally enforcing the law. The law is enforced the same way every time. I'm sure we all wish that the law could be enforced that way in every part of our society. There are people that are worried that speed cameras are limiting their rights, but nobody has the right to threaten the safety of others in a public space. I think we would all agree. And that's what you're doing when you're speeding. I urge this council to support speed cameras. Your job, first of all, is to protect our lives, and I know you take that seriously. With regards to the expansion of loading zones on Spruce and Pine Street, so I live on Pine Street, on the 1800 block. And just to make it clear, the so-called friends of Spruce and Pine Street are no friends of mine. They want my street to be less safe and less convenient for me, so that they can use my tax dollars to store their personal property, a car, in a public space. They talk about all these procedural things about evidence, but what they're asking for is red tape to protect their privileges. People that are against these regulations think that they're entitled to a parking spot. But could you imagine the outrage that would happen if this committee proposed to provide at taxpayer expense each bike owner in the city 300 square feet of public property on which to store their bicycle? And yet that's exactly what we do for car owners in this city. They ask for evidence for changing the status quo. I ask for evidence on why we should protect the status quo. What I'm asking for feels like the bare minimum to me. On my way here, walking out my door, I counted 4 delivery trucks and contractors that were parked illegally just on the 1800 block of Pine. That's one block, just my street. That puts me at danger every day. My neighbors obviously need the services that are provided by these delivery vehicles and contractors. The economic vitality of the city needs those services. What the economic vitality of the city does not need is subsidizing car owners and their storage of their vehicle. If owning a car and parking it on their street is that important to them, there are plenty of places that they can pay to park a vehicle rather than getting subsidized by the city. The expansion of government power is always something that's concerning, but I appreciate the amendment to this bill to limit it to Spruce and Pine Street. Finally, I would just like to say that I'm strongly in favor of not only the expansion of these loading zones, but I'm strongly in favor of bike lanes across the city, including the City Hall bike lane and the protection of the Spruce and Pine bike lanes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Please state your name and please give us your comment.
Hello, my name is Brad Merrill. Talking in regards to Bill 250718, the loading zone one. I primarily get around the city by bike. There's been countless times when I've been cycling in the street and a car is parked in the driving lane and I'm to the side. They just try to quickly swerve around the parked car. They don't even look for me, and then they only see me at the last split second. A lack of loading zones only exacerbates this issue. Similar problem when cars park in a bike lane. In that case, I'm forced out into the driving lane with all the distracted drivers. Lately, I've been avoiding Spruce and Pine whenever possible due to how many close calls and aggressive drivers I've encountered there. Aggressive impatience from drivers is an issue that can really only be solved by removing their need or ability to drive aggressively because there's no rational thinking behind it. I'm in favor of loading zones on as many blocks as possible. I'm in favor of concrete protection for bike lanes. And I'm also in favor of the use of disabled parking zones for anyone who's unable to walk to the loading zone at the end of the block. And I also just want to add at the end that I'm highly in favor of the City Hall bike lane, and it would really be a shame to waste this opportunity to add one. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Please state your name for the record and begin.
Thank you, Council. My name is Matt Prochnow. I'm here to testify in favor of 250718 as well. I've been working in district schools for the last 17 years. I'm raising my kids in the city, and I use all kinds of transportation, but I primarily use my bike. But the mentality that streets are for cars is everywhere. They tell it to my face every time they can. And to me, the streets are for the people, however they choose to use them. And I hope you can view my comments through that lens. Recently, my son goes to Southwark Elementary. It's on 9th Street. I'm biking on Tasker towards 13th when someone tells me to get on 13th Street. I'm literally on my way there. I don't know what the option is. I should be able to use a street to get to the bike lane. I say that to illustrate the kind of mentality that we're dealing with as cyclists. I've had someone bump me on purpose and yell, "I pay road tax," whatever that means. It's absurd and it's dangerous, and this mentality that cars on the streets shows up also in loading and delivery. And it would really make us all safer and reduce conflicts between different modes of transportation if we had these zones. There just simply aren't enough places for the people who are using the roads to stash their car briefly, especially with the rise in Uber and DoorDash and the like. So I'm asking you to support this bill. I'm asking you to give the Streets Department the authority they need. And if possible, please also note this testimony is in favor of the bike lane at City Hall.
Thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you.
Just want to note that we are asking if you could provide us information that is novel, that hasn't been. We do have a lot of folks that are interested in testifying on these bills. We want to make sure everyone is heard, but please, we're asking if you can keep your testimony concise and to the point so we can make a rational decision on how we're going to vote on this legislation. So thank you. Please state your name and begin.
Sure. Good afternoon. My name's Jennifer Tobin, and I'm urging you to vote in favor of Bill 250718. I'm a cyclist. I've been in Philly for about 20 years. I use the bike lanes all the time. The Spruce Pine bike lane I mostly use to go from Fairmount, where I live, down to the Head House Square area. And the bike lane is great. I love it. It is a wonderful way to get around, but not when I have to swerve into traffic. I've had many close calls, people shouting at me, as the previous speaker mentioned, to get in the bike lane. Well, you can't do that if there's a car blocking your way. And one thing I haven't heard during this hearing is anyone suggesting that there be no loading zones on streets. And that's because we take it as a given that we need loading zones. No one's opposing loading zones. What I'm here to say is the bike lane is a travel lane. It is not a loading zone. So when you don't legislate and don't create specific places for cars, the bike lane becomes a de facto loading zone, which is not what it is. It's a travel lane. So I'm asking you to just recognize that we are road users. We commute, we save the city lots of pollution, we create less pollution, we create less noise. We feel like we are entitled to our travel lane. Also feel like it would be great to have a bike lane around City Hall because I've had other close calls with people coming really close, within inches of hitting me. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the next names?
Can we get Jenny Picardo, Melanie Foreman, Eugene Sherrington, Ben Geffen, Mason Carter?
Please state your name and begin with your comment.
Thank you, Councilmember Young and City Council members on this committee. My name is Jenny Bacardo-Dubé, and I live in Center City with my family. I'm here to testify in support of Bill 250718. Riding a bike in Center City is a privilege I enjoy daily, and I'm deeply grateful for all the bike lanes throughout the city. Many of you are aware of the horrible crash where Barbara Freitas was killed at 18th and Spruce Street last summer. Had there been protected bike lanes, Barbara would be alive today. I was walking by at that moment and saw her lifeless young body in the street. That moment will always stay with me, and I would like to believe that she did not die in vain. Safety includes everyone in Center City and should be our #1 priority as a community. I live at 16th and Bainbridge Street. Regularly, trucks of all kinds and others blocks Bainbridge Street. They stop in the middle of the street, and this can last anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes. Loading zones are crucial for people who need more than 5 to 10 minutes. Not only would they reduce traffic, but they would also reduce the risk of crashes. Additionally, loading zones become parking spaces at night. Bike lanes were created for bikes, not cars. If a vehicle parks in a bike lane, they are jeopardizing the life of cyclists. With loading zones, these dangers could be avoided, and people could have better and, most importantly, safer places to unload. As a city that has experienced tragedies due to unsafe bike lanes, we should realize that impatience is not worth a human life. We do not need perfection, but what we do need is to protect cyclists while supporting residents. We need safe bike lanes, loading zones, and the general understanding that when you are driving in Center City, you can't go fast. As a city, let us all prioritize safety and make Philadelphia a safer environment for all.
Thank you so much for your comment. Please state your name again.
Good afternoon. My name is Melanie Foreman. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Bill number 250718 regarding loading zones on Spruce and Pine Streets. I live and work in Philadelphia. I didn't grow up here. I'm from rural Pennsylvania, Butler County. And growing up, you had to drive everywhere. I've chosen to make Philadelphia my home. One of the biggest reasons is that I can walk and bike. I love that about our city. Biking is my primary means of transportation. The mayor wants a safer, cleaner, and greener city. Allowing these loading zones to be permitted on Spruce and Pine Streets would make this city safer for everybody, not just cyclists, but for pedestrians and drivers as well. And it would also, if people feel safe walking and biking and leaving their cars at home, maybe it would make this a cleaner and greener city too. I would also like to say I'm disappointed that Bill 250649 regarding the City Hall bike lane has been held. This is a particularly dangerous area of the city to cycle, and I really hope that comes up again. I went to the placing of Dr. Friedis's Angel bike last year, and it was the saddest thing I've ever seen. And one of the things that struck me is that so easily could have been anyone else. It could have been any one of us, not just drunk drivers. Everybody's driving with cell phones today. I know the law has changed, but I'm sure everybody has seen people texting and driving along every road in Philadelphia. Please, please, please protect us and make us safe. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Benjamin Geffen. I'm a 16-year homeowner, car owner, bicycle owner in Center City, Philadelphia. And I'm here today to speak in support of the Center City loading zone ordinance. I came here with an idea of what to say, but I'm going to switch it up based on your request for concision and novelty and just respond to a couple of comments that we've heard earlier today. One is that this bill would somehow deprive the public of opportunities to give input into lawmaking in the city. Nothing could be further from the truth. This hearing is happening today. Previous hearings like this have happened. City officials are responsive to constituent concerns, whether they're in council or in the executive branch at all times. Public input doesn't mean unlimited opportunities to halt all progress. What the public input you're hearing is that the public is tired of process and wants loading zones and protected bike lanes. The other thing I'd like to comment about is a supposed lack of evidence. I'm going to give some evidence. Almost exactly a year ago, I was commuting home by bicycle along Spruce Street, as I have done every day for many years, when, because of the lack of a loading zone, I almost ended up a grease spot in the middle of the street. And what happened is an Uber driver abruptly pulled into the bike lane to discharge a passenger. The bike lane's on the left side of Spruce. This forced me to veer out from the bike lane into the moving traffic lane, and the passenger sitting in the back seat on the right side of the car suddenly flung open the door, knocked the door into me, and knocked me off my bike onto the pavement. I was lucky to get away that day with just some scrapes and some bruises. If there'd been a truck coming up quickly right behind me right then, I wouldn't be here today to give this testimony. And I think if you hear from enough cyclists, you'll hear a lot of stories like that. These don't usually make it into police statistics. I'm not going to stand around waiting for 2 hours to tell a police officer about the thing that happened to me. I need to get home and clean out my bloody wounds and take care of my children. I don't have time for that. And that's to the extent that my experience isn't in the data, that's why. But I'm here to tell you about that today. And the next time somebody comes here and tells you that there's no evidence that it's happened, I hope you remember Dr. Friedis, and I hope you remember the countless people who've had more minor experiences as I have too. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Please state your name for the record, and again. Sorry.
Yes, my name is Mason Carter. I am currently a resident of Germantown. I use the Spruce Pine bike lanes frequently. I'll bike down on the Schuylkill Trail, and then those are critical arteries for me once I get down to Center City. So lots of people are using it from all over the city. But I also lived in Society Hill for 6 years before. And I am disabled. I am a below-the-knee amputee. I frequently have issues where my accessibility or my walking isn't so good, and so having loading zones would be a dream to really, and I would have loved to have those back when I was living in the neighborhood. I'd like to bring up the fact that, for that to create this system of loading zones is really important to change the culture of driving in the city, and it has become less and less safe, especially during the pandemic and onward. And but also, at the same time, we need more people biking and to build a culture of biking in the city because it is the most affordable form of personal transportation. I own one car that my partner and I share, and the repair work, insurance, gas, it's all going up. And, biking is really something, I learned how to bike when I was 28. And so for me, I'm 37 now. And biking has really changed my life in a lot of ways to better explore the city through this method of personal transportation. But I tell you what, with the Spruce Pine bike lanes, like I've had many conflicts and had to deal with it. I'm very alert to these things, but I've had many surprises of people just pulling in, sideswiping me. Like, I'm lucky that I've only gotten nicked a bit and I haven't had to go to the hospital. But these are things that are going to really prevent more and more people from biking, and it's a wonderful thing, and I hope more people do. And finally, I really hope that the City Hall bike lane gets the attention that it deserves for the bill, because it really is the nexus of the Philadelphia universe, and it is the center of everything in the heart of the city, and we all deserve to be able to bike there safely without the fear of getting hit by many, many cars. So thank you very much for having us today.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the names of the next folks to comment?
Tom Kowalczyk, Jacob Russell, Cody Cowper, Brett Cohen.
Thank you, sir. Please state your name and give us your comment.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Tom Kowalczyk. I live in Grad Hospital at Catherine and 22nd Street. We have a car, we have a bike, and we use SEPTA. We use all the major sources of transportation in the city. We moved to the city 4 years ago in part because we wanted a walkable, bikeable city, and we think we're well on the way to having one of those. I'm here to speak in support of Bill 250718, the loading zone bill. I think loading zones make Spruce and Pine and most of the city a much safer place by providing safe places to load and unload. And I also think that delegating the authority to decide where to put something as simple as a loading zone is something that good governance would put with the experts in the street department and not use up all of council's valuable time deciding where to put a loading zone. So with that, I'm hoping the committee will recommend the bill forward.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Jacob Russell. I'm here in favor of Bill 250718 to add loading zones in center, or to authorize the street department to add loading zones in Center City. I want to make a couple of small points. First is there are dozens of general purpose loading zones all throughout the city. They already exist. They've existed for years. There hasn't been any issue. There apparently is a legal vulnerability to those loading zones, as we've seen recently because of this lawsuit from FOPS. If you do not authorize a general bill that allows loading zones to exist all throughout Center City, those could go away. I want to highlight a couple specific examples. Old Pine Church at 4th and Pine Street, Morris Animal Rescue at 13th and Lombard, and the Academy of Arts on Broad and Ray Street. All three institutions have a general purpose loading zone in front of their establishment. Without a general bill that authorizes loading zones in all of Center City, those loading zones could be removed at any time by a lawsuit. As the person in front of me said, loading zones are a basic necessity for the streets department to install as they need to accommodate the ever-changing needs on our streets. Now, opponents of this legislation will talk about how Otis simply can't be trusted with the awesome power of making it a little bit easier for people to unload their groceries. They'll complain about the lack of engagement about the project undergoing improvements on Spruce and Pine Street. So let's look at that history of engagement. So first, there was several city council meetings where the no stopping in the bike lane bill was discussed publicly. After that passed unanimously, Otis decided it needed to put loading zones to give a place to load and unload on the streets because it was now illegal to park in the bike lane. Last October, Otis held a public meeting attended by over 350 Philadelphians, including 150 residents of Spruce and Pine Street. They followed up that meeting with a special listening session for the Society Hill Civic Association. After those meetings, Otis mailed a letter to every address on Spruce and Pine Street, inviting them to share their thoughts on the loading zone plan and placement. I lived on Spruce at this time. I received the letter. Otis read and gave a response to every single comment they received as part of these public engagement efforts. It's posted on the website. You can go see it. Every person was heard. Every person was responded to. In February, Otis then formed a working group with the neighborhood associations, the bicycle advocates, and FOPS, the group now suing the city over loading zones. Every member of that group, including FOPS, had the opportunity to fully share their vision for Spruce and Pine Street. That working group would continue meeting today if FOPS's lawsuit hadn't forced it to disband. In the spring of this year, I believe it was April, the Otis also held the mandatory hearing for any kind of curbside regulation changes. This legislation would still require that hearing to take place today, providing a chance for community input. Fundamentally, FOPS needs to be honest. Their problem is not they've been ignored. They've been heard time and time again. Their problem is their position is dangerous and unpopular. I mean, we've heard every person today so far comment in favor of this legislation. The vast majority of Philadelphians want the city to create safer and more orderly streets. As council members, you have a responsibility to provide our agencies with the tools to make that vision happen. I'll also give a little bit more data, because there was a request for more data.
I think, if you don't mind, if you could just summarize your comments so we can allow other folks to testify.
Thank you, Councilmember.
You can conclude, but just want you to summarize.
I was going to say, Philly Bike actually maintains an app that lets people report violations, parking violations. There's been a 50% increase in blocked bike lanes after the removal of the loading zones. So that shows, unlike what the judge thought, there is a definite benefit to the bike lanes for having loading zones on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Cody Cowper. On behalf of the Washington Square Civic Association, I need to express my deep disappointment that Bill 250649 was withdrawn without notice. Many of us rearrange work and family schedules to testify, and this abrupt action signals a lack of respect for constituents. That makes it even more frustrating because this project is exactly the kind of improvement our community needs. The protected bike lane would provide a critical link to existing infrastructure, calm traffic near City Hall, and make walking and biking safer for the many residents of Washington Square West, most of whom do not own a car. We urge Council to bring this bill back quickly, treat the public's time with respect, and allow it to move forward. I'm also here to testify on Bill 250718. I live right off the 1000 block of Spruce, and I'm testifying on this bill in my individual capacity and not as a board member of the Washington Square West Civic Association. I'm also a car owner, and I have not noticed a material difference in my ability to find a spot since these new loading zones were installed. Perhaps that is because they revert to parking at 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, depending on the zone. What I have noticed are the benefits. For example, less crosswalk parking, which means I can now cross more safely with my kids and a stroller without being forced into traffic. I've also seen traffic move more smoothly. At McCall School, for example, where my children attend, parents were using these zones to drop off and pick up, and the removal has made those times of day more chaotic and unsafe. That's why I support giving the Streets Department the authority to install loading zones without requiring council action for each one. My experience leads me to a simple conclusion. Experts know how to design safer streets, better than politics, and certainly better than random citizens.
Thank you so much for your comment. Please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Brett Cohen. I'm a resident in the 5th Councilmanic District. I live in Northern Liberties. I often use my bike with various attachments to transport myself, my 5-year-old daughter, as well as my 9-year-old son. He can use a trailer pedal attachment. since he's a bigger kid. My remarks are not going to be necessarily like some of the other folks. They've covered very important areas with lots of the facts. I'm going to provide some additional context. I support Bill 250718, of course, and that goes without saying. But what I would like to talk about is Bill 250649 for the City Hall bike lanes that I'm disappointed to hear that the bill pertaining to that has been held. I feel like an alien sometimes since I don't primarily use a car. I understand that City Council members are offered a car, and maybe some of the council members do take advantage of that, and so they may primarily use a car. And it may be hard to fathom that lifestyle from that perspective, that 44% of Philadelphians, according to the 2024 census data, and I'll provide my information to the staff, of course, but 44% of Philadelphians, and a higher percentage, closer to 50% in Center City, use a method of transportation aside from a car. So if I am an alien, there are a lot of people, a lot of constituents just like me. And I am privileged to be able to come here and to take off work. But when I look in the bike lanes, I see some folks who look like the people here, but I see a very diverse cycling community. I see people of color. I see people who are delivery and food delivery and drop-off drivers on bikes and e-bikes who are often or usually from minority backgrounds. So this is not an issue about a privileged few or something. This actually touches on some of the most voiceless members of society, and those people aren't able to be here today because they don't have benefits. They're gig workers in the gig economy, so they can't take off because then they can't feed themselves or their families. So I'm here, and I want to say that the City Hall bike lanes are vital. They are a minimum because they would be traffic separated. They wouldn't even be protected yet, but they would be the first step. And we understand that's how the process begins. The Cyclist is coming up, and we have this repaving opportunity. I think that to have the best face for Philadelphia when that happens, we should avail ourselves of easy, low-hanging fruit like the City Hall bike lane and take advantage of those opportunities when we have them. So I strongly urge this committee and the chair to unhold the bill, or whatever the technical term is, so that it can be voted on, and so that I see them ripping up the pavement as I got to this hearing. It would be just wonderful to see that coming through. And again, not for me, not for people with the color of my skin, but for people who can only afford a bike, who really need the safety that such a lane would provide. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the next witnesses?
Maya Afalalo, Louis Bartholomew, Amy Jersold, Sheila Lynch.
Thank you. Please state your name and give us your testimony.
Hi, my name is Maya Afilalo. I'm a resident of South Philly at 10th and Wharton. I'm urging the council to vote in favor of bill number 250718 to authorize loading zones in Center City. I've been cycling in the city for 10 years. I'm also a car owner. I regularly bike on Spruce and Pine to get to work at Moore College, where I teach writing. To echo what others have said, there's always someone parked in the bike lane. There are always near misses. Former friend of Spruce and Pine spoke about compromise. I go out of my way to bike in a bike lane. I go several blocks out of my way to be safer. So compromise is being made, and if it's a question of convenience, cyclists are also taking more inconvenient routes for their safety. I live in South Philly now, but I used to live on the 2100 block of Pine. I was a renter. I know it's hard to own a car there. I know it's hard to park. I've gotten towed more times than I can remember. A loading zone would have been really helpful to unload groceries, to bring up heavy stuff, to get deliveries. It's better for car infrastructure. To that end, I also support the City Hall bike lanes. I used to drive around City Hall every single day. I was a caretaker for my grandmother in hospice on City Avenue. I was driving around City Hall every day. Bike lanes create predictability. If you've ever driven around City Hall, you know we could use a little more predictability around there. So finally, in regards to the loading zones, a vocal minority of residents who claim to support bike safety when it's convenient for them to do so are in opposition to this bill. Last year, we lost a Philadelphian, Dr. Barbara Freitas, due to a lack of protected bike lane. The main reason I'm here, in addition to myself, is my best friend's older brother was killed by a distracted driver on his bike 10 years ago. That family is still grieving. To me, the idea that convenience is more important than safety is absolutely abhorrent, and I'm asking the council to vote in favor of creating these loading zones, which will make everyone safer, which will mitigate traffic, and create a more sustainable city. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please state your name again.
Hi, my name is Amy Jersold. I'm a resident of Rittenhouse Square, and I'm speaking in support of Bill 250718. I believe strongly that the city should have the authority to install and maintain bike lanes, and that the city should provide a way for people to attend to their own needs, temporarily unloading what they need to unload without imperiling their neighbors, particularly their neighbors on bikes. My husband and I used such a loading zone for a number of months when our son was temporarily unable to walk because of his cancer diagnosis. That loading zone was very important to us during an extremely difficult time, and it also allowed us to take care of him and get him out of the car and into our house without illegally stopping and imperiling other people that needed to go around us. I want to say one more thing. Dr. Barbara Freitas would have started her medical career in the same department that saved my son's life. And because she was riding in an unprotected bike lane, she is deprived of her life, and kids like my son are deprived of her life-saving expertise. That is why I am particularly frustrated every time my now 16-year-old son gets on his bike and heads down Spruce bike lane. I'm particularly frustrated that there are constituents and stakeholders in the city who seem to want to impede the placement of loading zones and imperil an opportunity to avoid unnecessary injury, loss, and death. I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chair Young and members of City Council. My name is Louis Bartholomew, and I'm a resident between Pine and Spruce. I'm here to voice my support for Bill 250718, which would codify the city's authority to install loading zones in the Center City area and on Pine and Spruce. I also have the privilege of working with the PA Safe Roads PAC, which advocates for safe streets across the Commonwealth and here in Philadelphia. I've sat with the families who have lost loved ones due to traffic violence, from children lost senselessly in drag races on the boulevard to adults who have died just riding their bikes. We often forget how dangerous driving is. Just this past weekend when I was driving in rural Michigan, I was almost in a crash. A pickup truck almost hit me head on. I was able to swerve, and luckily we weren't hurt, but it did hit another person in front of us. If I had been 3 seconds later, I probably wouldn't be here. It goes to show how dangerous our streets are, not just in Michigan, but also in Philadelphia, where crashes are very commonplace. I use the bike lanes every single day, Pine and Spruce, to get to and from work in Queen Village. I saw the flipped car on Spruce a few months ago. That was just in the bike lane. I sent it to some folks, and it just goes to show how dangerous these bike lanes are. Barbara Freitas was my exact age when she died. It could have been me. Every day it can be me, and it could be any of us sitting back here. Emily Fredericks was also killed in the bike lane on Spruce in 2017. She was 24 years old. She was a pastry chef. There's no reason for these people to die. All we have here, unfortunately, is a vocal, wealthy minority, predominantly from one neighborhood, who feel that they get to park in bike lanes. And there's just really no reason for it when we have loading zones that have worked very, very well for 2 months. Again, they put their convenience over everyone else's safety. It's really unfortunate that we can't come together and work for common sense solutions where we have loading zones, we have a protected bike lane, we have a travel lane. It's really the basic minimum. So I thank you in advance for your support of this bill. I also just want to add that I am in support of the City Hall Bike Lane Bill, which is Bill 250718. I know that, or excuse me, 250649, which would be the City Hall Bike Lane Bill. I'm disappointed to hear that it was tabled for now, but I trust that it will be passed next time and any issues will be resolved. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Portman, would you please call the name of the next witnesses or next commenters?
Can we get Charles Goodwin, Peter Crotchy, Eliza Yusi, Alex Teddy, Sage Lincoln, Debbie Zach Cohen, Michael Novak,
Thank you. Please begin.
Good afternoon, Chairman Young and members of the committee. Thanks for having us here today. My name is Peter Croce, and I'm here to speak on Bill 250718. I live on Spruce, right in front of a loading zone, and I'm a proud business owner here in Philadelphia. I actually moved to Philadelphia 3 years ago because I want to live in a bikeable city. So living in front of a loading zone, I actually live in Unit 1F, like right in front of the loading zone. My windows look out. I was able to see firsthand how frequently these loading zones were used and how many cars and trucks were able to briefly make delivery and drop people off and people unload groceries while keeping the bike and the car traffic lanes clear. These loading zones were working very well until they were removed. So any claims to the contrary just do not line up with what we've seen on the ground. They work especially well for elderly and disabled individuals to have ample space to get in and out of the vehicle without risk of traffic passing near their vehicle, as is a risk when bike lanes are used as loading zones. So I also bike on Spruce and Pine every day, and every day I see that when we don't have loading zones, there are cars and trucks parked in the bike lane. It makes me feel unsafe, but I'm a fairly young and confident biker. The real tragedy is that less experienced bikers, kids, the elderly, and others are forced to navigate around vehicles in the bike lane, jeopardizing not only their safety, but those who are unloading and trying to use bike lanes as loading zones. I'll keep this brief. I have more I could say, but a lot of folks have really said important things here already. I also just want to add that I'm disappointed that the bike lane around City Hall bill was tabled today. That is an especially dangerous area to bike around City Hall. That should be reintroduced, and I would love to see that happen. So I encourage the passage of this bill for the safety of all residents, those who bike, those who drive, those who want to unload. Loading zones make us all safer. Thank you.
Please begin. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alex Tady, and I'm here to voice my strong support for Bill 250718. I'm a member of a folk dancing society here in Philadelphia. We're an intergenerational group by design, connecting people of different ages, races, and income levels. And we're part of a larger folk dance community which connects our city to dance communities across the East Coast. Many of our younger members don't own cars. They travel from across the city and rely on safe, reliable ways to reach us. Without an interconnected bike system, especially around heavily trafficked areas like Spruce and Pine and throughout Center City generally, attendance is both difficult and dangerous for them. We need more such infrastructure throughout Center City. I worry about my friends being injured. The lack of safe bike access is a real burden that falls hardest on younger and lower income people who want to participate in cultural life. For us, bike infrastructure isn't an abstract issue. It directly impacts our community. I urge the council to support Bill 250-718 so our members and Philadelphians of all backgrounds can safely travel in the heart of our city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. Please proceed.
My name is Charles Goodwin. I'm a 25-year resident of Pine Street and have been working or living in Philadelphia for 35 years. I've also been bicycling here for most of that time, and I've been among the 2% of Philadelphians who are, or Center City residents who are bike commuters. The rest of that 40-some-odd% are actually foot commuters. And I'm here to speak out against Bill 250-178, which would give the Streets Department the ability to ramrod measures, such as its loading zone proposal and other purported bike lane improvements, without consideration of public support. When Otis purported to conduct its community meeting last October, it was only publicized to bicycle groups. It was not publicized to residents. Otis and the Streets Department cannot be granted the power to act without councilmanic supervision. I'm an engaged citizen. I've been president of my RCO, and I'll tell you that transparency was not what Otis was interested in when I was president of my RCO. This is 10 years ago, but same people.
I recall.
Yeah, but I will say that, it's like, please don't show our plans to anybody until they're perfect. You wait a month, they keep stalling, they keep stalling. Finally, I posted them publicly, and guess what? The public didn't like it. I'm also treasurer of my ward. I know most of the long-term residents on the blocks surrounding my house. And frankly, since we were talking about speed cams earlier, I am going to say something everybody would agree with here. We could really use speed cams on Pine and Spruce, and we should really have a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. It's insane that you can go 25 miles an hour legally down those streets. They're too narrow, and it's too dangerous. The loading zone proposal is overwhelmingly opposed by the residents of Pine and Spruce. 600-700 people routinely sign petitions against these proposals. The proposals, starting with the no stopping signs, converting parking spaces to jumbo loading zones, and ultimately seeking to impose low-rise concrete barriers which would not have done a damn thing to save Dr. Frieda's life, because that car going 60 miles an hour would have easily surmounted them and killed her. And the proposal is for concrete barriers is like 6 inches, 8 inches maybe from Otis. But this is a case of the few imposing their will over the many. Opponents of the proposals are hundreds of residents who have lived here for decades, paying taxes and raising families and participating in the community. These are the people who are responsible for making Center City this livable place it was now, as opposed to what it was like in the 90s for those of us who've been around long enough to remember. The principal supporters of this proposal is a group called Philly Bike Action. As of February 2025, PBA had some 200 members citywide, according to a Reddit post by its founder in the R Climate Offensive subreddit. That's not a big number, especially since PBA counts membership as simply having a verified account with their Discord server or forum. PBA's Discord server reveals some 69 members who claim to live in Center City and another 55 in South Philly. PBA's Discord server is a really interesting read, and council members might want to take a look at what they've said about you.
Thank you.
For the most part, there's really a couple dozen always active, always online people here. And they're a majority because they live in an online echo chamber where they shout down anybody who disagrees with them. 10 of PBA's 12 board members moved to Philadelphia in the last 3 years or so. Only 2 have lived here longer. Pine and Spruce are among the most safe streets in Philadelphia. There's no factual support for any of these proposals that would indicate they will improve bike safety. They won't. It won't change anything. And I think it's perhaps the PBA folks' lack of familiarity with urban living that has something to do with their passionate support for these various proposals. They feel that Pine and Spruce streets are dangerous, notwithstanding overwhelming contrary evidence. And frankly, as an almost daily bike rider, I don't recognize the hellscape I'm hearing about from the other people who have given public comment. It's like riding in Mayberry. And in sum, the committee's choices between a large established community that vehemently opposes these proposals and a handful of folks, like Fifth Square, 330 members citywide, and a handful of folks who just moved here who want to change things to suit their way of life over the strong opposition of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
My name is Eliza Yowzi. I am speaking in support of Bill 250718 to reauthorize the Streets Department to make changes to parking rules in Center City, the amended version just along Spruce and Pine. Firstly, I would just like to encourage council, if you're curious about I don't know our exact number of members, but I would encourage you to reach out to Philly Bike Action board member for those numbers, and not a member of FOPS. I'm a resident of Center City for 3 years now. I live on Lombard. I commute to work to CHOP on a bike. My partner and I also own a car, which he uses to commute, and we both use to get groceries and run errands throughout the week. Loading zones make sense for drivers, such as myself. They make sense for pedestrians, such as myself. They make sense for bikers. I'm a member of all three communities, and I use loading zones a lot to do exactly what they're named for, to load and unload things from my car. I don't have the luxury of a bike lane to illegally park in temporarily on my block, so I use the loading zone, and it's really, really helpful. So the loading zones make sense for all types of road users. Delegating the responsibility for determining where those loading zones are, that makes sense for it to be the Streets Department's responsibility and not for every loading zone along Spruce and Pine to come to City Council. That doesn't make any sense. I also want to lastly add my own story of an unreported traffic incident. A couple months after I first started biking, I was on Spruce and Pine. There was a car parked in the bike lane. I was looking over my shoulder to go around it to check if there was a car behind me, and I was inexperienced. My wheel turned more than I thought it would, and I went over the handlebars, slid several feet in the middle of the road on the pavement. I didn't wait around for the police for a couple hours to report my incident. I have a coworker who was hit by a car on a skateboard. He didn't wait around for the police. I have a friend who was hit by a car as a pedestrian. She did not report her incident at all. So trust that there are many unreported incidents that are not in empirical evidence available. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Please state your name for the record. Begin with your comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Sage Lincoln, and I am a resident and homeowner on Spruce Street in Washington Square West, which is on the High Injury Network. I'm going to go off script here and start off by thanking Otis. They've been raked through the mud a lot. When they first brought their loading zone plan, a lot of residents in my building were very skeptical. I live in a large condo building. There are many, many retired residents in the building. People brought their concerns to Otis. A concern was crossing mid-block at Juniper Street, where cars are racing trying to get the green light at Broad. Another concern was the timing of the loading zones, that they wouldn't go late enough when many residents came and dropped off groceries after work. Otis engaged with the residents and made adjustments accordingly. They added a stop sign, they changed the loading zone times, they engaged with residents, and they listened to residents. Otis also sent out a letter to every single resident along Spruce and Pine. All of the data shows, both at the open house they held and based on the results of the letter they sent out with a survey to fill out, that the majority of residents on Spruce and Pine support loading zones. Many residents don't have a car. In my neighborhood, the majority of owners don't have cars. But every single person needs a loading zone. And I'm going to do a quick day in the life of a loading zone before Friends of Pine and Spruce had it removed. So every morning, the loading zones would be used by the restaurant and bodega downstairs using large delivery trucks. Contractors pulled into them to drop off their tools. There's a dry cleaners downstairs. All throughout the day, customers were able to pull into the loading zone to pick up and drop off their clothes. And then there's residents, many of whom are retired, were able to constantly use them to drop off groceries, to catch taxis. Delivery trucks and mail trucks all day long are able to pull into them safely before they had nowhere they could go. Next door, people setting up events at the William Way LGBTQ Community Center could unload everything for their events right outside, and people attending those events could readily get dropped off and picked off. And me personally, when I needed to take a litter of kittens to the vet with 2 large carriers, I was able to be picked up in the loading zone. When my friends with a newborn baby visited, they were able to drop off baby and mom in the loading zone while dad found parking many blocks away, and do so safely. When I came home from a family vacation, I'm able to unload the car there. And overnight, all of these spots become resident parking when it is most needed when people are home from work. Without the loading zones now, there is nowhere for these critical activities to take place. So instead, either traffic is blocked, which, as you've heard time and time again, is unsafe and also increases congestion. It causes a lot of traffic when cars block traffic. Or residents have to park many blocks away to unload and carry stuff. And so that's why the majority of residents, when asked by Otis, said, yes, I support loading zones. This is something that the community overwhelmingly wants. So as a resident, I would like to urge council to authorize the streets department to install these crucial loading zones because every single person on Spruce and Pine needs them, whereas the vast majority do not own cars. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Please state your name and give me your testimony.
Hello, I think I'm the last one. My name is Debbie Zach Cohen. I am reading on behalf of Society Hill Civic Association that firmly opposes Bill number 250-718. This legislation exists for one purpose, to reverse Judge Street's ruling that invalidated loading zones on Pine and Spruce Streets. If passed, the bill changes the law not for safety or planning, but to move more swiftly and avoid accountability. Under this bill, Otis and the Streets Department would have sweeping authority to change parking, stopping, standing, and loading rules anywhere in Center City. This would be done without any legislative approval or community consultation. That means one agency decides the future of our neighborhoods in isolation, dismantling a long-standing system of checks and balances. Critically, the bill does not require fact-based studies, neighborhood input, and feedback or council reviews. Otis already has admitted that it did not do a traffic impact analysis for the loading zones, and it can reasonably be inferred that none were conducted for the dangerous get out of the bike lane law either. For example, the loading zones, which are controversial, meaning some people like them, some people don't. There are issues with it. It would be nice if it could get worked out, but what I see on my block is the loading zones are 6'11" wide. Most large vehicles that need to utilize it are 8 feet 6 inches with 12-inch mirror spans. That bumps the people in the loading zones into the traffic lane. That shifts the traffic lane into the bike lane buffer. That's a real issue, and maybe a traffic impact study would have shown that. Maybe it can get worked out, I don't know. These studies would have uncovered cascading consequences of Otis's current bike lane plan, narrower, if not impossible, passage of emergency vehicles, displaced parking, spillover congestion, and heightened risk for cyclists. Each step taken without evidence compounds dangers rather than preventing them. I felt and heard every fear, everyone who spoke with fear today. We have a problem on the streets, and the problem is speed and traffic enforcement. We are in favor of bike lanes, lowering the speed limit, implementing speed cameras, implementing traffic calming, and encouraging safe behaviors to improve safely. But to be clear, we oppose granting unchecked authority to a single agency, forcing through a cycle superhighway at the expense of street safety, community cohesion, and the democratic process.
Thank you so much. Can you give me to wrap up your testimony, please? Thank you.
We urge you to reject Bill 257-18 or table it.
Thank you for your comment.
You're welcome.
Mr. Pullen, would you please read the names of the next public commenters?
Let's get Deb Horing, Annie O'Brien, Hannah Collar, Adrian Valonis, Chris Gale,
So again, some folks have already testified. If you've already testified, please limit your testimony. We would appreciate that for time's sake, but please state your name and give us your comment.
Thank you. My name is Deb Hong. I'm a resident of District 5, and I'd like to thank Chairperson Young and the members of the Streets Committee for the opportunity to talk today. A lot of what I was originally going to say has been said by others, so I'll limit my comments to keep this brief. I want to speak on behalf of Philly Bike Action in that we support the loading zones, Bill 250718, in its unamended form. We think that there should be loading zones authorized throughout the original boundaries from Spring Garden to Bainbridge Street, and not just on Spruce and Pine. All of Center City needs these loading zones. I'd also like to mention that cyclists are residents too. There's this framing of residents versus cyclists, and that's simply not true. I myself am a homeowner and a tax-paying member of the city, and I would also like to mention that the City Hall Bike Lane Bill, 250649, had 1426 signatures, and most of the signatures came in within the first week or so of PBA releasing that petition. So it's not just the members of PBA who are in support of safety measures like the City Hall Bike Lane Bill and loading zones. There's widespread support for this. I'd also like to mention that the City Hall Bike Lane as you can see outside, the street is currently being milled, and PennDOT is in the process of installing that lane at no cost to the city. If this legislation is not introduced, the city would be responsible for taking out that bike lane at significant cost. So I would like to echo what other people have said in support of those two bills, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Hello, my name is Adrian Valonis. I'm a resident of Philadelphia and Old City. I'm here to testify in favor of bill number 250718, authorizing the Streets Department to install loading zones in the Center City area. This legislation is very valuable because it allows the Streets Department to install parking according to demand instead of wasting time in City Council hearings deciding when every single loading zone goes in. The Streets Department, which is staffed by experts who have multiple degrees, years of training, often decades of experience in urban planning, it allows them to make changes that are necessary for our city to thrive, necessary for businesses to operate, to receive deliveries, necessary for residents to drop off relatives, and all other purposes of loading, including carrying heavy kitty litter. I'm also here to testify in favor of Bill 250649, authorizing a bicycle lane around City Hall, Penn Square. As a resident of Old City, this lane would be a future connection to the existing bike lanes that are in construction on Market Street in my neighborhood. I use those lanes, the portions that are constructed already, all the time to travel to and from Center City. The City Hall bike lane would be a keystone in the bike network. It would connect directly right now to the 15th Street bike lane, JFK bike lane, Market Street on the west side bike lane, and would enable a seamless transportation and make our network safe for a lot more people. So I strongly urge you to untable the bill and ensure that PennDOT is able to proceed with the pavement markings as planned. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Please state your name and proceed with your testimony.
Hello, my name is Hannah Kaler, and I am a resident in West Philadelphia. Thank you, Councilmember Young and the members of the Streets and Services Committee for this time, and thank you to my Councilmember Gaudier, for sponsoring this bill. I wanted to come today to speak in favor of Bill 250712 because I frequently use the 47th Street bike lane, and it's amazing. It's a huge improvement. I have two friends who live nearby the new bike lane, one directly on it and the other half a block away, and I've been able to visit both more frequently and easily since the installation of the bike lane. I've also ridden down it when bringing a meal to parents who just welcomed their second child. It's a vital connector route for neighborhood residents like me who do not own a car, and I think we should do everything in our legislative power to protect it and keep it as functional as possible. Yes, I applaud City Council Member Gaudier for supporting streets where cyclists of all ages and abilities can feel safe and comfortable riding. Bike lanes are an important part of our transportation infrastructure. I strongly support this bill and urge the members of the Streets and Services Committee to vote in favor of it. I also am in favor of the City Hall bike lane, and that would be great.
Thank you so much. Mr. Gale, please give me your comment.
Thank you, Chair Young, Councilmember Harity. I am Chris Gale, the Executive Director of the Bicycle Coalition. I'm also a resident of the 5th Councilmanic District, living at 20th and Fairmount. I do want to talk about Bill number 250649. I am disappointed to see or hear that it has been tabled or held. I do urge you to bring that back for a couple of different reasons. One, I rely on that bike lane every single day to get to work. Being a big guy on a bike, I am afforded, weirdly, some extra space by drivers often. But when I'm around City Hall, that's not the case. Just this morning, as I was coming into City Hall, riding around without the markings right now, I got buzzed. And all I was trying to do is just get around Dilworth so that I could get to the bike share station and put my bike up, right? Just so that I could be here. So I do ask and urge you to bring that back. It is one of the rare occasions that PennDOT, streets, highways, Otis, everybody is in support of this and in unison, and it's a free bike lane. So it won't cost our city anything unless we pull it. It's being done right now, so time is of the essence. As a resident, as a father, my 3 kids really, I gotta get home to my kids. And when we're sitting here talking about protection and the fact that folks are saying, like, I can't do this, I can't do that, it is literally an ask of life or death for me. I ride Spruce every day, I ride 15th every day. I want to do a good job. I want to make this city a better place for everybody, but I need to be able to get back and forth to work safely. I recognize the privilege that I have being able to work in Center City, living in Fairmount. When I worked in Kensington, when I worked in Hunting Park, I couldn't get around safely on my bike, but I can now, and I ask you to keep ensuring that that happens so that I can get home and I can be here and we can do all these things to make our city a better place for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Pillen, please call the next names.
Mr. Chris Zabel, V. Lynn Hogbin, Teresa Feo, Ben Feinland, Cameron O'Grady.
Thank you so much. Please state your name and begin with your comment.
My name is Lynn Hogben. I'm a resident of the 4700 block of Windsor Avenue, a street adjoining 47th Street in West Philadelphia. I'm speaking in opposition to Bill number 250712, which would give the Streets Department the power to remove and restrict parking on 47th Street without any community input. As an initial matter, I would note that none of the public comment on this has been allowed until 4:35 in the afternoon, at which point several of the council members are not present, and it would be appropriate that we have an opportunity to actually speak in front of the full committee rather than those who have responsibly given their time and stayed this long. But I will make my statement. Much of 47th Street is residential, and as has been discussed, there was community input on some parking changes as part of the conversion of 47th Street to a one-way, one-lane street. However, this is not the bill that Council Member Gauthier described. She describes it as a bill approving the changes as to which the community had input. It doesn't do that at all. This does not approve specific changes. It instead gives the street department and Otis carte blanche license to make any changes they wish that have never, ever been disclosed to the community. The bill is also not limited to safety needs, such as daylighting. Rather, it allows restriction of parking for loading zones on residential blocks without consulting the residents at all on whether and under what circumstances, conditions, such loading zones will be beneficial. For example, residents should have input on the hours of a loading zone so that the spaces can be useful for overnight parking. The residents under this bill have no such opportunity. Moreover, the bill does not limit the amount of parking that could be removed or restricted without community input. It therefore affects not only residents on 47th Street, but also all residents on adjoining and nearby blocks, as removal of substantial parking on any block causes the residents who needed to park there to park on other streets. Giving Otis and the Streets Department free rein to remove and restrict parking in a residential neighborhood without community input is a bad idea. It has been shown from events in connection with the 47th Street project that these agencies do not know the needs and characteristics of the city's neighborhoods and will make decisions that are both harmful and of no safety or other benefit to anyone, residents or bicyclists, if there is not an opportunity for community input. Last spring, Otis planned to convert 8 parking spaces on Windsor Avenue into handicapped parking spaces without realizing that there were no residents with handicapped plates living nearby who did not already have a handicapped space in front of their home. As a result, there would have been no one to use those spaces. Because this was disclosed to the community, the affected residents had the opportunity to contact Councilmember Gauthier, who helpfully set up a meeting between the residents and Otis. As a result, Otis realized that its parking removal would harm residents and benefit no one, and did not proceed with the changes. Under this bill, that input does not happen. Otis goes ahead, Streets Department goes ahead and makes changes that can harm residents and may benefit no one at all because the community is not hurt. 47th Street and our neighborhood in West Philadelphia are not Chestnut and Market Streets in Center City. Imposing parking and stopping restrictions in front of residents' houses without community input, whether in our neighborhood or in any other residential area of the city, is very different from regulating parking in commercial areas that have no houses that depend on on-street parking. Addressing parking changes on 47th Street and other residential areas by bills authorizing specific parking changes that have been disclosed to the community would be the better solution, as it will prevent gratuitous harm, which will result if Otis and the Streets Department are permitted to act without community input. I strongly urge you to reject Bill 250712 and approve specific parking restrictions that have been subjected to community input and not give them a free license to make changes without the community being consulted. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. If you have written testimony, you can always submit it for the record as well, and just note that everything will be made part of the record.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, Councilmember Young, and Councilmember Harity, and I guess the other, Councilmember Ahmad is back. We would like to state for the record that we feel that the clock has run out. We have spent the day here. We haven't been able to present evidence. The Deputy Commissioner of Streets is no longer here who could corroborate our testimony. We brought you some pictures, but we did have some videos that we wanted to show that we weren't able to have shown to the committee today. So we ask, with all respect, to table this hearing until a proper hearing with the right time frame so we can actually present you with the evidence that debunks much of what the Bike Coalition members and community just said. And speaking, when I say we can debunk what Chris Gale said, we can debunk some of what Jamie Gauthier said. There's
So I'm going to ask
other
if you
issues.
have that to at least note that for us on this record, so we know what you have. So please, this is your opportunity to testify.
Okay, so I'm opposed to granting the Streets Department blanket authority to revise, alter, or eliminate parking and loading zones on 47th Street or any Philadelphia street using their broad discretion without community input. Their recent decisions demonstrate that their discretion is often exercised without regard for context-specific land use, demographics, design principles, or best practices in traffic engineering. The reconfiguration of 47th Street installed in tandem with the 48th Street bike lane last year illustrates this failure. Although promoted as part of the Vision Zero Complete Streets program intended to enhance safety for all users, the redesign has instead created new and serious hazards, particularly for children, seniors, and people with disabilities. I will just briefly say the loss of ADA and senior access, increased school hazards, the traffic diversion and congestion of 75% of all of 47th Street traffic being diverted into the low-income, predominantly black neighborhood adjacent to it, violates the environmental justice advisory rules that were put in place by this very committee that was submitted also by Jamie Gauthier in 2022 and Helen Gim. The emergency response blockages, we've been in touch with both fire departments in our local area. Neither of those were consulted. They did not review these plans. We've been in touch with the Star Harbor Senior Center, Senior Management, and Catholic Charities. They were never consulted about their ADA access needs. We have multiple other evidence to present. We know about the Vision Zero claim that we were on a high injury network. Michael Carroll, the Deputy Managing Director, under Adam Thiel, on April 10th, 2024, testified in front of 30 people at a community meeting in front of Calvary Church that we were not on the high injury network, that we were a safe street, and that this was a project brought to his office by Councilmember Gauthier's office. It was not on their schedule to do. Rich Montanez said the same thing. This was brought forward to create a northbound, southbound bicycle corridor to the Schuylkill River Trail using safe streets. So they took and co-opted 2 safe streets to design their bike lane. And if you notice from the pictures, which it's almost, you need to see it in person to believe it, it's so much bigger, it's wider at certain points, 16 feet wide, bigger than the car travel lane. Residents along the street were stunned when this was put forward. The school is not on board with this. As you know, we have emails from the church. I have additional ones that they didn't send directly to you, they sent to us. We have residents from all 4 wards, 10 blocks. We have businesses on the corridor. We have the Star Harbor Senior Center, St. Francis. We're all united that this is an unsafe application of a road diet and the bike lane. And we are not anti-bike lane. We had bike lanes for years on 48th Street. We have a bike lane that's working right now on 48th Street that is perfectly fine and goes to the same destination at King Sessing. So the need for this was not done with safety in mind, and what we'd like to point out even now, as Councilmember Gauthier mentioned safety as her first priority, Springfield Avenue has been remilled and paved as a racetrack for the last 2 months. It runs next to that school. So 47th Street and Springfield, you're now focused only on bike safety, installing signs to come and ticket the nuns, ticket the parents like they were doing weeks ago, ticket the teachers, and they are leaving Springfield, which Rich Montanez could tell you right now, people are racing 50 to 60 miles an hour through a 15-mile-an-hour speed zone. That's cars. And the electric bikes are going 40 to 50 miles an hour. The flashing lights aren't working. They didn't put the speed bumps back in. It's just an unstriped raceway. So when they say safety is their most important issue, we're asking you, as the Committee on Streets, whose safety? Vision Zero prioritizes children first, the disabled second, the elderly third, and then bicyclists are below that. And if you come out and visit with us, which we're inviting you to come to St. Francis, come to Star Harbor, witness what the seniors are going through now to get to their handicap ramp which you removed their access. This plan removed their entire access for a CCT or a paratransit van to pull up next to their handicap ramp. Wintertime is going to be a nightmare. Even if they put a loading zone on Springfield Avenue, you can make it the tour bus size. They still have to go all the way around the corner and go down the street to get to their handicap ramp access because you removed the southbound lane of traffic. And I'm going to let Greg Benjamin speak about his concerns in the 51st Ward where he is as a ward leader and the traffic impact that we're seeing already overwhelming our streets. In closing, I just wanted to say this. While bicycle connectivity is a worthy goal and we support safe bike lanes, this location was neither appropriate nor equitable. An existing bike route already serves the Schuylkill River Trail and Bartram's Garden. Moreover, expanding the bicycle network by co-opting already safe streets without accounting for local risks is negligence on the part of the city and puts vulnerable road users in harm's way. Vision Zero principles say the disproportionate influence of political influence on Vision Zero in a municipality is actually something that destroys the credibility of Vision Zero everywhere. We believe the disproportionate influence of bicycle advocacy groups on Otis and the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission undermines objective decision-making. For this reason, we do not support Bill 250712, Bill 250718, or even, come on, City Hall 250649. We were just stuck in traffic for 20 minutes where a fire truck couldn't get down the road because one lane is out around City Hall. It would behoove City Council to establish independent oversight to review new bike lane projects for compliance with ADA regulations, PennDOT regulations, federal highway regulations, and Philadelphia's Environmental Justice and Racial Equity Commission rules. None of that was done for this project for 47th and 48th, and we have receipts to prove that, except Councilmember Gautier is not here, Richard Montanez is not here, and Michael Carroll's not here. So we would like that opportunity for this to be held so that we can have that open dialogue and fully transparent where we can show you why Vision Zero's data of high injury network is false in our neighborhood completely. And we're talking south of Baltimore Avenue all the way to Grays Ferry. Not a single killed or serious injury on the Vision Zero maps for a single bicyclist. It was not fair, it's inequitable, and it's wrong. As the Committee on Streets, I expect and I hope respectfully that you will put your attention to this matter and actually look at providing oversight, and in this case, possibly citizen oversight, because it doesn't seem like the Bike Coalition is willing to police themselves. So that's what we're asking for, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for your comment. So is your comment, hold on for a second, is your comment that the Otis is manipulating the data to fit like their own, I guess, narrative?
Vision Zero is a national organization, it's a concept, and it's also small local groups.
Okay.
There is a set of standards the national organization sets best practices, but they're not a government agency. They're a non-profit agency that can take the data, and if you look on the Vision Zero pages of the Philly, Vision Zero PHL, you will see a little sidebar where it explains their methodology. If I have an accident on, let me give you an example in West Philly. If I have an accident on 47th and Market Street, which is more than a half a mile away from 47th and King Sessing, they're gonna go ahead and and they've done this, they're gonna say, this is a Vision Zero data, which includes probably almost 20 blocks. It's not on the Vision Zero network. If you look on the Vision Zero network and compare it with PennDOT's vulnerable road user list of the 12% of roads that are on the Vision Zero network, you will see King Sessing, tons of accidents. It's been a speedway for years. Chester, tons of accidents. Springfield Avenue is the most trafficked road in our neighborhood. It wasn't even included in their studies. And you will see the Vision Zero data, killed and serious injuries, the PPD data, all of that. We have 2 data gurus that have looked into all this. They're manipulating the Vision Zero PHL statistics. We are not a high injury network road. The decision to put us on a high injury network road was made, and we have right to know emails that were filed. We have emails where they added 47th Street to the 48th Street process that already had been debunked by Michael Carroll that we weren't on the Vision Zero network. They told the community for 2.5 years, they're so dangerous. It's the most dangerous streets in the city. If you look on social media, you'll see every bike lobby advocate saying that we're the most dangerous streets in the city. We're not. You can ask the police department, they'll laugh at you. The fire department is upset. They can't even get to people now in West and Southwest Philly. But on top of all that, the primary concern is that this is an agency that has extended its overreach, its municipal overreach that's not being policed. The Bike Coalition is embedded in Otis as well as Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. The complaints that we're filing go to the state and the federal level, which oversee them. They're not being monitored by Philadelphia, and we're asking for your help to do that. They should be subject to oversight. Every time they show up and they have all their 40 people stand up and tell you with emotional appeals, the doctor, we understand that. We're not saying we don't want safety. We're saying there's a lot of funding being used on roads that are not unsafe when it should be being put towards the truly unsafe roads. Baltimore Avenue is a nightmare. 58th in Baltimore, you just lost a man that was pulled under the wheel of a truck. Girard Avenue, Belmont. Instead, they're going and taking and cherry picking certain roads and then manipulating the data to put it on their high injury network map. We can show you the maps. There isn't a single bike accident anywhere in that high injury network. The pedestrian crashes that Jamie Gauthier mentioned were on Chester, which has always been a speedway. They come racing over the hill. And Baltimore Avenue was where the guy crashed into Mr. Lee's Deli. Those are all busy roads that are on the high injury network, as is Woodland and King Sessing. 47th Street was not in our neighborhood, nor was 48th Street. So we would like
5:30.
some type of oversight to look into this, because this it's exhausting, and most of us have jobs. We don't have a whole advocacy group behind us to fight and have people show up here every day and tell stories. We don't have that. We're fighting on behalf of a neighborhood of low-income, predominantly black residents in King Sessing and Southwest. You dumped all your traffic in this neighborhood. It's absolutely unacceptable. And they're sitting there. Grace Ferry has always been a congested nightmare. The bridge traffic now backs up all the way to Paschal, Woodland Avenue. It's 2 hours to get across the Grace Ferry Bridge. It's wrong. So what we're asking for is a meeting where we can actually sit. We'd love to invite you, the Committee on Streets, to come to Star Harbor, come to St. Francis, listen to Sister Mary, who runs the school, listen to the pastor, and listen to the Star Harbor seniors, and they'll give you an earful. Those seniors will tell you. We've had CCT drivers accosted by the bike people, threatening with a laser app on their phone that they're going to send them in for ticketing while they're dropping off a disabled person. The nutrition group delivers their hot meals every day at Star Harbor, at that entrance that he can't get to anymore, and he has to stick his truck there because there's no place for him to go. Eric Millick, we have his name, we have his number, we have all of that information if you want to speak to people that are actually on site that can tell you what's going on. And for every resident that's on 47th Street and on 48th Street that's been fighting for this, they live on the street. For everyone else that you're hearing comments from, none of them live there, but they're telling how nice it is and how quiet it is and it's so much safer now. Of course, you don't live on this street. You don't live on the streets you just dumped all the traffic on. That's not okay to do that. So that's why we feel that this process has become so, it's unworkable anymore. It needs citizen oversight, and it needs to be looked at in a more formal way. And you're the Committee on Streets, so we hope you guys will do. Otherwise, what's a Committee on Streets for if everything just gets rubber stamped? It's not right. So that's where we are coming from. And we have tried and have been ignored for 2.5 years by our own council member. Rich Montanez and I have a really good talking relationship, and he would confirm what I'm saying about whose project this was, who started it, the Garden Court community started it. He would also confirm that we were the ones who brought his attention to the fact that the loading zones that were being planned by Otis were on the wrong side. They weren't, you'd be dropping grandma off into oncoming traffic. There's so much there, it's hard for me to corral it, but I get a little crazy and passionate. But it's been a long day, and we do want a chance for this to be investigated before you go ahead and push it up to council, because we won't even get a chance in council because they'll flood the council room again with the bike lobby people, and we won't even. Sister Mary and Father Ryan came downtown to testify. They took the day off from school to come down here and testify. This is not okay. That was in May. And that very same day, a letter was read by Jamie Gauthier when they passed it. So you ignored the school, you ignored Star Harbor, the businesses. It's wrong, and it's something that needs to be fixed, not just for our neighborhood, but for Center City with Pine and Spruce. If you noticed, they had a memorial the other day for the fellow named Fenton that was in Fairmount Park. I should let you go. I should let you talk, because I'm just frustrated right now. But sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm
So
gonna be
can you
real brief.
conclude your testimony? We have to take a quick, brief recess. For this. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to be real brief. First, I want to thank you, Councilman. I'm Greg Benjamin. I'm taking off the ward leader hat. I'm a resident of Southwest Philadelphia for 60+ years. I'm very concerned about what's going on right now. I want to thank you, Councilman Young, Councilman Harity, Councilperson Bass, Sequello, as well as Ahmad. I think what we need to really look at is who's really being affected by what these decisions that are being made now. And I see, yes, there is a large number of folks out here, but I know one that lives in the neighborhood, but I'd like to know how many of them actually live in the neighborhood that's affected by these decisions that are being made. It hurts me. I was asked recently what was I doing at a protest at 47th and Springfield recently. I was there because the residents that live there know me, and they asked me would I participate. Teresa asked me would I participate. There is a groundswell of interest now because people are feeling like they're being forced to accept something that they don't even know about, less more have an opportunity to make a decision one way or the other. And then finally, I just say this. I am not opposed to bike riders. I don't want to, I think it's so unfair when people may not totally agree with everything that's being somewhat forced on us to say that we hate this or don't like that. I'm just as concerned about the safety of a bike rider as I am a person driving in a car or my child walking down the street. Someone asked this question, they made this statement. They said the streets were not made for cars. I would kind of challenge that a little bit because when I go on corners, I see stop signs, and they're not for people, and they're not for bikes. I see traffic lights. They're not for people, and they're not for bikes. Because these streets have been in existence, people have been using cars for a very long time. So to just come and say all of a sudden that this is not necessary or we're being overwhelmed, we're just being hard or hatred, I think it's untrue. And I think it's going to bring more interest from neighbors who are affected by this, and then it could turn into something that people dislike this or that because they're not having the opportunity to have some input. And that's all I want to say. I thank you for your tolerance and giving us this time.
I have one more thing to say.
Yes, ma'am.
I have one more thing to say. There's one common denominator in every bike lane project that comes up for review. The 3rd Street bike lane, the Pine and Spruce, Castor Avenue, 47th and 48th Street. Every single time, the same story. They cherry pick who they invite to the meetings. They fake the amount of support with anonymous surveys. We had 170 people on a petition that lived on that actual corridor where they were putting the bike lane on 47th and 48th. We were ignored. The bike lane people showed up en masse at the public community meetings. They intimidated the people that were there, the little handicapped lady sitting there. We filed a letter of formal complaint with Adam Thiel's office, who bumped it down to Michael Carroll, who investigated it and said, oh, well, was it a city employee? He was representing our city employee, Ms. Bruger, when she told everybody in the room to be quiet. There were no places for anybody to sit. The residents who complained about the proposed traffic being diverted were excluded from the rest of the public meetings over a year and a half, and we can show that because on their very own flyers, they only invited certain people on their flyers from certain blocks. They completely left off the 49th and Woodland Avenue. Oh, we're going to do a study to see what needs to be done over there. Their original plan was taking that all the way to Grace Ferry, and instead it was discovered after they realized the neighborhood wasn't built that way. You had a playground there, you had baseball teams, you couldn't take out the parking, and 3 streets would have lost EMT access completely. They didn't know the neighborhood when they decided to push this through. We can prove all that, and what we're asking for is some help from City Council to push back and force them to actually, like you said it earlier, transparency. That's one of the top key things on Vision Zero, is transparency of data. That's not happening here in Philly.
Thank you so much. I think that what you're mentioning.
And I really do hope y'all come to the community, because I think that would be a good opportunity for you to get some other sides of opinions.
Yeah. I think what you're mentioning is information that needs to be presented to that district council member again, and have that district council member weigh in on that, because unfortunately many of us up here, for district council members, do not represent those particular areas, so I don't have a keen understanding of what's going on the ground down there.
That's why we're inviting you, but honestly, from what we understand, the Committee on Streets was put together to review streets projects with some sense of what's right, what's wrong, will this work? It shouldn't just be rubber stamped by councilmanic prerogative, because there's a lot of people that cross all the districts that travel these roads. 47th Street was the main road coming in off of Grace Ferry along with the other road. It's now completely, 75% of that traffic has been dumped into another neighborhood. That is not okay. The seniors, they need your protection. That's the Committee on Streets role, from what I understood. So I hope
Thank you for your comment.
you come out and see us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Mr. Pullen, would you please call the names of the next commenters as well, just so we can, so they can queue them up for the final folks that are going to be left to testify for public comment?
Cameron O'Grady, Ben Feinland, Chris Zabel. Who's at the... Oh, no, there's more.
Yeah, please read all the names so folks can come up for public comment.
Ann Dorn, Cecilia Thompson, John Brookton, Isabel Melvin, Ray King, Russell Ritchie, Will Tung, Nick DiTaranto, Jason Dosh, Josh Clow, Ray King, Victor Abadia, James Doherty, and Lou Huang.
Thank you. And again, if you've already testified, could you please limit your comments to things that are novel? Thank you so much. Please begin.
I'm actually about to. Okay. All right.
Please state your name and begin.
Yeah, my name is Ben Feinland. I'd like to speak on behalf of Bill 205712 regarding the 47th Street bike lane. Admittedly, I don't live on 47th Street. I live on 46th, which is pretty close, and it has been the largest quality of life improvement since I've moved to the city 4 years ago now. It has made it so much easier to get down to King Sessing, to see my friends, to access Baltimore Avenue, which is still dangerous, but it's getting better. And so I cannot stress enough how important and helpful this has been to me as a citizen of West Philadelphia. So for Bill 205712, that would allow it would allow an increased ability to create loading zones, which would make it even safer. And so similarly, for Bill 205718, the loading zones have made life biking into Center City much easier and much less stressful, and frankly, just much nicer. And so I hope you consider passing that as well. And lastly, I would just like to voice my support for Bill 205649, the City Hall bike lanes. Those would be so helpful to cyclists within the city, so please consider bringing that next time the committee meets. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Please state your name and begin.
My name is Steve Bergquist, speaking in favor of Bill number 250712 for the 7th Street loading zones. I'm a cycle commuter and proud resident of Southwest Philadelphia, 52nd Street. I live within walking distance of Fred's Water Ice, but I originally come from Minneapolis, a city famous for its impressive urban cycling infrastructure. There are useful protected bike lanes and separated paths all over the city, in purely residential neighborhoods in both the wealthy and non-wealthy parts of town, on the university campuses, and right in the downtown business district. In the city I come from, it is totally normal for children, for elders, for young professionals of all social classes to be sharing any of the many protected bike routes at their own pace to get to their destination safely. They often get there faster than they would if they were driving or taking the bus. This is normal not only in the humid summer months, but also in the 3 months a year where the daily temperatures are frequently below freezing. I have seen it with my own eyes. When people feel safe in bike lanes, they will use them, and that alleviates traffic in the process. I've seen firsthand all the benefits that safe, predictable, useful micromobility infrastructure brings to people of all ages, abilities, and incomes, whether they're getting there on a bicycle, on an electric scooter, or just walking on a path that feels safe. I was so excited to see the new parking protected bike lanes go in 48th and 47th, my neighborhood, as it represented tangible progress for my adopted home of Philadelphia, one of the country's largest cities and least car-dependent cities, to catch up to the cycling infrastructure of my much smaller hometown. The 48th and 47th Street bike lanes have made my trips into University City and Center City a lot safer. They're an absolute blessing to me. The only time they are frustrating is when a delivery or construction truck is blocking them due to the regular parking on the block being taken up already. We live in a world now with a lot of delivery vehicles and a lot more than existed a few decades ago. So it makes sense to create and enforce loading zones to let those delivery workers do their job, supplying the local businesses that make life in West Philly go round, while also letting cyclists like me and people of all ages and abilities get to those same businesses safely without being forced into mixed traffic. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Good afternoon. My name is Cecilia Thompson, and I am speaking on Bill 250711. It was introduced by my councilperson, Jamie Gautier, on 9/11/2025. They want to change the traffic direction for the 500 block of Preston Street to go into Spring Garden Street rather than Haverford Avenue. I've been a resident since 2017, living in the 4050 Haverford Avenue apartments, and when those accidents happen, they're right under my apartment where my disabled adult child thinks somebody's gotten killed. That's how loud it is. The accidents are so severe that they would hit, there's a religious institution and they had these pillars, they would literally knock these pillars over. I believe the reason for these accidents is prior to 2017, my building was an empty lot. And there were empty lots around there for about 15 years until the city started building. It was a pause during the pandemic, but there's a lot of apartments around there. But before then, you could drive, I guess, 30 miles from 40 to 41st and Haverford and vice versa. With that stop sign there, people, at least in my neighborhood, think it's a rolling stop. So they'll stop a little bit because they think there's a stop sign between 40 and 41st and Haverford, and there's not. And then that's when you get these horrific accidents. To my knowledge, nobody has gotten killed. I've sent pictures, videos to former or the honorable former city council person Janie Blackwell, and now to councilperson Jamie Gautier. I am asking, my advocacy was to either put a stop sign there or a stoplight. There was no issue about the accidents. It was who's going to pay for the stop sign or the stoplight. I am asking for the residents of the 500 block of of Preston Street and Green Street, which is a street that when you go down it, you would make a right onto Haverford to have their voice heard. I don't think that the religious institution that I was told that claimed to be advocating for us, they weren't. Our building is across the street from this religious institution, and all they had to do was walk across the street and say, hey, this is when the meetings are happening. If it's possible, I don't know what the city council version of this is, but if you can put a pause until, instead of telling us what to do, ask us, this is what's proposed. Like these other neighborhoods that I'm hearing, even if they're for or against something, they were at least informed. We were not informed to say we are for or against anything. We don't have a block captain because of the blight that was there before the housing, and we don't have committee people that represent us. I am willing to work with council member, my council person, Jamie Gautier. If they can secure the place, I'll have my son and his support person put the flyers everywhere so that people are informed, hey, this is what's being proposed. Do you agree or disagree? I think stop signs should be there, but I'm not here to speak on their behalf. I'm for family and parent and community engagement, and at least don't dismiss us because we live in a low resource area. We live in an area, I live in an area that's a lot of seniors, a lot of disabled people like myself, and even if they change the traffic, those cars are still going to have to stop, and it's still going to be accidents, because if they're coming down Haverford Avenue and they want to turn onto Preston from 40th and Haverford, you still got to stop. That traffic is not going to stop. I've been living there since 2017, and they treat it like the Indy 500. It's terrible, and I don't know if this is a cheaper way by not putting up, at least I prefer a stoplight, but not putting up a stop sign, but cheaper is not always safer. So if there's any way we can at least have a meeting that includes the residents, and again, I'm gonna end with this. When I just kind of asked on my way here, because they couldn't make this 1 o'clock meeting because they're working, like, y'all know that they're gonna change the street, the direction of the street, and they were like, no, I went on Green Street, nobody on Green Street knew. The residents on Haverford Avenue, from my apartment to 40th and Haverford, they don't know. I got informed about this because I went to the community meeting in Mill Creek, and that's when somebody from the state said, this is what we're going to do. I was like, how come you didn't ask the residents?
Okay,
And
so,
that's when
ma'am,
she told me that. So
I
thank
do
you for
think
the
that,
opportunity to
thank you
speak.
for your comment. I do think this is a matter for your community and residents from your block to reach out to your district council member. It seems like she's been willing to work with communities on issues. So I would actually just reach out to Council Member Gaudier with some of the concerns of those residents and some of the folks that are in the building that you live in.
Okay. Can I ask a procedure question? Like, I don't know this part of city council, so when something comes to a committee, what happens after that?
The committee then takes an action or decides to take an action or not take an action on legislation that's before us. So we can move it out of, there's multiple things that we can do in committee, but this is the process that allows something to become a law. So this is a part of that process.
Okay, so then it moves out of here and goes to, I'm gonna say big city council?
Yeah, the council of the whole committee, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Hello, good evening, Chair Young and members of City Council. You met two of my neighbors before, Teresa Feo, Greg Benjamin. I live just one block over from Greg Benjamin. He's my ward leader. But I am here, my name is Will Tung. I'm a resident of Southwest Philly in Kingsessing, here as a husband and father raising a child in this city. I'm here in support of Bill 250712, which will enable the city to regulate parking and loading on 47th Street in my neighborhood. This bill would enable the city to set parking and loading regulations to suit the way all road users use these streets today, especially motorists, taxis, rideshare drivers, delivery companies. Before, the norm would be to illegally double park in the travel lane. So with the loading zones, that will alleviate that. And this bill is part of a larger plan that reconfigured 47th Street to be safer. There's a lot of discussion about the bike lane and the conversion of 47th Street from two-way to one-way. That was a bill that already passed this committee a year ago. It passed this committee, it passed City Council. We're only here to talk about the loading zones. For 47th Street is on the high injury network. I am proud of my council member, Jamie Gautier, for prioritizing safety here, and it's among the most dangerous streets in the city. The corridor averaged a major crash every month, and 2 pedestrians struck every year. I know, the chair, you asked for statistics on 47th Street earlier, like hours ago. According to PennDOT, between 2019 and 2023, this corridor on 47th Street saw 45 crashes Over the 4 years, 9 pedestrians struck, 3 of them seriously injured. These are numbers from PennDOT.
Do you know what streets? It's just said the entire corridor. So from what's the north and south streets?
I believe it's just on King Sessing to Chestnut.
Okay.
But that's straight from Otis documents. That's not my figures. I didn't make those up, but those are just straight from the Otis public engagement documents. There were also over 2 years of public engagement on this. I know I saw many of the folks who opposed this at those public engagement meetings, and to claim that this is all done in secret without any consultation with the neighborhood, that's patently false. Hundreds of people came out to these engagement meetings. They were very well attended, and overwhelmingly, the neighborhood approved of them. The neighborhood, we filled out survey comment cards, and the neighborhood, overwhelmingly supports the changes. And now this is just a vocal minority coming to council and voicing their opinion, which they're entitled to do. So since the reconfiguration, people using bicycles now have a dedicated safe space to ride. People crossing the street benefit from slower moving vehicles and shortened crossing distances. And people driving just drive slower on this residential street and are less likely to be involved in a crash that kills or seriously injures someone. So on a personal note, my daughter has to cross 47th Street on her way to and from school. My wife needs to cross 47th Street to get to work and get to her Muay Thai gym. And since this reconfiguration, the cars here drive slower and it's calmer and it's noticeably less stressful for us. This is one less street we have to worry about crossing out of the many streets in West Philly that we cross. So I want to thank you for your time. I also want to express support for the bike lane bill around City Hall. I'm disappointed that bill's been held, and I look forward to that passing this committee. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Please state your name for the record and give us your comment.
Yeah, my name is Ray King, and I'm here to advocate for the loading zones in Center City and 47th Street. I just think it makes good sense. It will make it a safer road. And also, for the bike lane around City Hall, I know that bill has been tabled, but I'd like to just say that is something that the city needs. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comment. Thank you. Please state your name again and proceed with your comment.
Hi, I'm Russell Ritchie. I spoke earlier as part of the panel in Fifth Square. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for enduring hours of this with us. Just doing this on one day was very trying for me. I cannot imagine how it is for all of you to do it day in and day out, so thank you so much for your public service. I want to make a comment and ask a question. My comment is that allowing free or underpriced parking on our urban streets, to the tune of the RPP is only $75 a year now, that's effectively a massive, massive subsidy to the richest, whitest residents of this city. When I moved to the city in Center City several years ago, I paid $200 a month for garage parking in Center City. So do the math, that's thousands of dollars per year that people are getting in free parking in Center City. That's massively unfair to the people that live elsewhere in the city, and that's millions of dollars that the city is leaving on the table that they could spend on Vision Zero, they could spend on SEPTA, they could spend on many other things. So that's my comment. My question is, why is the City Hall bike lane bill being held up?
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else? Please hold the next comment. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Isabel Melvin, and I'm here on behalf of, let me get my notes here. Oh, Chairperson Young and City Council members of the Streets and Services Committee, thank you very much for what you do for the City of Philadelphia. Thank you for introducing Bill 250718. I fully support this loading zone bill. This bill will make me feel safer as I walk and bike on Spruce and Pine. The pedestrian safety, bicycle, and accessibility infrastructure has improved so much over the years. Thank you very much for all the hard work you've done. Safety, safety, safety. And I support the City Hall bike lane. And I just want to remind you that just last November on the east side of City Hall, a person driving an SUV struck 2 people on the sidewalk. Both suffered serious injuries, with one victim losing his leg. Crashes like this are fully preventable. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jason Doss, resident of District 3. I'm here to support 250712 about the loading zones on 47th Street in West Philadelphia. I live quite nearby, closer to 49th Street. I cross 47th all the time. 47th was terrifying until this year. I basically avoided it, and I'm speaking primarily as a pedestrian in this case. This is a street that was scary to cross because drivers would be constantly trying to run you over. Some of my neighbors who, Teresa, Ben, who I know from they come to the meetings, I actually disagree with them about bike lanes. I like bike lanes, but I agree with them. Our neighborhood is what we call a car sewer. People driving from Delco to New Jersey and back come right through our little residential neighborhood. It's a problem. 47th Street now, it's nice. I love walking on 47th. I seek it out. I walk on it on purpose. The daylighted corners allow us to see what's coming. If you're driving on 47th now, it's nice. It used to be people were trying to drive around you in both directions, and you couldn't see at the corners because everybody was parked up to the corners. So as a pedestrian, you were getting run over and you couldn't see. As a driver, you couldn't see and you were afraid of running somebody over, and cars were trying to pass you at 60 miles per hour on a little narrow street. So it's better. Thank you, Councilmember Gaudier, for spearheading that. As Gaudier mentioned, we had a huge amount of community outreach. People were heard, and overwhelmingly people were in favor, and now overwhelmingly people like it. Many of my neighbors couldn't take 4 hours off on a Monday afternoon to be here, but I've talked to them about this. My neighbor across the street, he's actually bicycling his daughter to preschool now on 47th. This is not something he could have done last year. This is somebody who grew up in the neighborhood, has, lived here his whole life, and his relationship to the neighborhood is changing. I grew up in Philadelphia in the 80s and 90s, and it wasn't like this then, in my memory. I was a kid, but I feel like the cars have gotten worse, traffic has gotten worse, and something like loading zones, daylighted corners are part of the solution. So 47th, I said it's better now, but it is incomplete until these loading zones are implemented. We get deliveries to residences, but also there's businesses along there. There's the 2 schools that I can think of off the top of my head, DeSalle's and the public school, Lee. There's people coming and going, exactly when you'd expect, lots of them. They need loading zones. The businesses, we heard about Vietnam restaurant. We heard about Lee's, where somebody drove a van into them off 47th last year because they were traveling at a high speed by Baltimore Avenue. So we have a lot of problematic streets in our neighborhood. Fixing 47th doesn't fix all the other ones. I think we can all acknowledge that. That's a common sense thing, that fixing one street at a time is applying Band-Aids to a systemic problem that Philadelphia faces and that this subcommittee of council is tasked with dealing with. And I thank you all for your work on that. Loading zones are a huge part of the solution citywide. So people were talking about the Spruce and Pine loading zones. Sounds good to me, but again, speaking as a resident of Cedar Park, we need them on 47th because now there's a single lane of traffic moving. Where exactly is UPS, FedEx, Amazon supposed to go? The Star Harbor Senior Center, yeah, they need a loading zone right there. Again, a common sense move, the idea that we're helping Star Harbor by blocking the loading zone. No, we're helping Star Harbor by putting this loading zone in. We're helping St. Francis School by putting this loading zone in. Are people on other blocks, including mine, a little jealous? Yes. Yes, we are. We want to see more of this. But meanwhile, I just want to say what is happening on 47th represents what we want to see. And if that means that somebody driving from Ardmore to Cherry Hill can't drive through my neighborhood at 60 miles per hour anymore. I am okay with that, and I expect you are too. Cedar Park was built as what they call a streetcar suburb. So that means people who would take the trolley to Center City for the jobs and otherwise walk around what is still a beautiful walkable neighborhood. Parking is limited. It was in fact built before cars. It was not built for cars. There's Garden Court a little bit north of us. They've got parking in the back alleys. We don't have that down where I live. So it's a very small proportion of the most privileged neighbors who own cars, who have cars. The rest of us, we're walking, we're taking SEPTA, we're riding bicycles, and we're happy about that. People move to this neighborhood on purpose. And Councilmember Gadia understands that aspect of the neighborhood, these people who want to live in a neighborhood where we can travel via SEPTA, via bicycle, on foot, to do our shopping on foot, and not be worried about getting run over by people zooming through our neighborhood. Parking, free street parking, that's low on the list of priorities for my neighbors. I'm a little bit of a neighborhood busybody. I talk to a lot of people. It's not like nobody doesn't appreciate a free parking spot. We do, of course, but that's not number one priority. We care about safety, we care about families, we care about children being able to ride their bikes. Imagine that. When I was a child in Philly, I could ride my bike.
Could you begin to conclude your testimony, sir? Thank you.
So 47th Street, what I'm saying is that it is good, but it's incomplete until these loading zones are in. Let's get those loading zones in. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Leonard Benarek. I'm sorry, excuse me, it's been a long day. I'm a resident of the 47th Street corridor, been for about 8 years, and I'm here to speak in support of Bill 250712. Also, while we're here, I would like to see the City Hall bike lane bill be reintroduced. I think that's an important piece of infrastructure for our city, but I want to speak about my own personal experiences. Since 47th Street has gone in, and these loading zones, as the previous speaker said, are a crucial part of making those successful and making them functional, my experience of just being able to cross the street has changed dramatically. I, on the urging of my loved ones, gave up on confrontations with drivers on asserting my right of way to cross the street with my children, holding the hand of my children when drivers were refusing to stop for us. I got into multiple altercations with people. People got out of their cars, etc. I had to give up on that and just wait for the street to clear while I'm standing at the edge of a crosswalk when there's a stop sign. Since 47th Street has gone in, the crossing distance got shortened to only 11 feet. We can see drivers coming, and my 9-year-old child can now cross that street on their own without me coming with them. It has made an enormous difference in my life. And this type of change, we have seen it over and over. We saw it on West Chestnut Street when there was the same type of opposition. And we saw West Chestnut Street, that's the section between 33rd Street and 46th, come off of the high injury network because these changes were made. I'm looking forward to seeing the updated data that shows that 47th Street is now off of the high injury network. So we've seen example after example of this working, and I just want to encourage you to never put the convenience needs of a few people ahead of the safety of the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Please state your name and begin with your comment.
Good evening. My name is Lu Huang. I believe I was the last name called, but this is my first time providing comment on a bill before the committee. So I just thank you so much for your time. I've been here for 4 hours. I just wanted to see if I can get my voice in. I was here to comment on bill number 250649 that will authorize a permanent protected bike lane around City Hall. I'm a resident of the District 5 neighborhood of Brewerytown, and I'm here to speak as my experience as a bicyclist. Bicycling is my primary form of transportation around the city. I regularly bike down the Parkway, which, as you know, has a dedicated bike line, and oftentimes I find myself needing to ride past City Hall to reach Center City East or Old City, as I did today. But once you reach the southeast end of the Parkway, the bike lanes are disjointed and even non-existent, and I feel like this is a very dangerous gap in the existing bike network, and I feel like I place my life in danger every time I need to ride around Dilworth Plaza when I'm navigating through the area. So if I'm understanding correctly, PennDOT is installing the bike lane as a pilot, so I look forward to being a regular user of that when it is installed. But I also don't want to be afraid that it is going to go away at any time, so I urge you to bring back Bill 250649 and vote for it in favor of being a permanent bike lane around City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else wishing to testify for public comment?
Hello, Council.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record. Begin with your comment.
Of course, of course. Let me just make sure I got my stuff here. All right, we're good. Hello, my name is Jeremy Blatstein. I'm here in support of Bills 250718 and 250712. I am here on behalf of Big Bike. Obviously, this is one massive conspiracy. Kidding. Let's be clear. Safety over everything. Safety over everything. It is absolutely insane to say that Otis and Streets is bought off by the Bicycle Coalition. If anything, it is the other way around, that a few wealthy individuals are trying to kill protected bike lanes and loading zones on Pine and Spruce. I rise today in support of creating more loading zones in Philadelphia, particularly on Pine and Spruce Street, as well as on 47th Street. These streets are some of the most heavily traveled in our city. They carry not just residents, but delivery drivers, service workers, and small business suppliers. Without proper loading zones, trucks and vans are forced to double park, blocking traffic and endangering cyclists and pedestrians. That creates frustration for drivers, unsafe conditions for bikers, and slower service for the very businesses that keep our neighborhoods alive. The bill before us would give Otis the authority to establish loading zones without requiring separate approval from City Council each time. This is a common sense reform. It streamlines the process, cuts down on the unnecessary bureaucracy, and allows the city to respond more quickly to the realities on the ground. Our transportation leaders are best equipped to analyze traffic flow, safety concerns, and business needs in real time. Giving them the flexibility to act will make Philadelphia streets safer and more efficient. On Pine and Spruce in particular, this will reduce the constant conflict between delivery vehicles and the bike lanes. On 47th Street, it will help local businesses that rely on regular deliveries to operate smoothly without clogging up traffic or endangering pedestrians. Loading zones may sound small, but they make a huge difference. They support local commerce, improve safety, and keep our streets moving. I urge City Council to support this bill and give Otis the authority to designate these zones where they are needed most. And last but not least, not approving the bike lane around City Hall today will only cost the city more money and cause more problems. This shouldn't have even been a part of the conversation if the bike lane bill had been introduced sooner by you. And I do believe that your constituents and the residents of Philadelphia deserve an explanation as to why it's tabled. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Please state your name for the record. Begin with your comment.
Hi, my name is Robert Brown, and I live near South and 11th Street. I'm here to speak in support of the unamended version of Bill 250718. I'm a regular user at Indigo, the city's bike share program, and I frequently walk and bike in Center City. As a cyclist and a pedestrian, I've noticed fewer cars parked in the Spruce and Pine bike lanes since the new loading zones were installed earlier this year. And I've also noticed that parked cars returned when the loading zones were removed. I'm sure the parking authority has citation data that can validate my observations. In the 3 years I've lived in Philadelphia, I've never felt comfortable biking in Center City, and this is especially true for the loop surrounding City Hall. I often encounter cars parked in the bike lane near the intersection of 15th and South Penn Square, which force me to either dismount my bike or move into Dilworth Park to attempt to pass via car lane. Just recently, I encountered a car blocking the City Hall bike lane with a vanity license plate that read, "Be secure." Ironically, when I asked the driver why they were blocking the bike lane, they began to shout obscenities at me. Equally ironic is that Google Maps satellite imagery shows a car parked in the same location. About the City Hall bike lane, I commend you, Chairperson Young, and your team for acting quickly to introduce this bill before the summer recess. But I'm concerned about what happens if the bill isn't passed by council before PennDOT completes their work. Will we lose our opportunity to improve our city's infrastructure? I urge you and the committee to report out 250649 and 250718 as soon as possible.
Thank you for your comment. Please state your name for the record and begin with your comment.
Hi, my name is Ann Dorn. I'm the vice chair of the Pastoral Council at St. Francis de Sales, which is located on 47th Street, but I'm here speaking on my own behalf. I'm here to comment on Bill 250712 about the loading zones. And I'm here to tell you that there is a big safety problem on 47th Street, but the loading zones aren't going to help it at all. The problem is pick up and drop off at the school. Many of our school families live outside the neighborhood. They drive, drop their children off at school, then continue on to work. And the streets are just not set up for that volume of traffic. So every morning, every afternoon, there's 30, 45 minutes where the situation is unsafe for pedestrians, for children getting out of the car, for drivers. It's just a very unsafe situation. And moving 47th Street to one lane has made the situation much worse. Today, we're not here to really talk about that, but I think the decision does need to be revisited. It's certainly true that there have been a number of community meetings. The school itself hosted, I believe, 2 of them. I attended one. I talked to the traffic engineers. But our concerns were not taken seriously. For example, we said if you make 47th Street one way, parents are going to start speeding up the side streets, and they said, oh, no, that won't happen, and they had some technical explanation for why it wouldn't happen. But we said they already cut through these side streets now. Of course it's going to get worse, and naturally it did get worse. They just went ahead with their plan. And really the problem with doing all these meetings in advance is when nobody knows what's going to happen, everybody's just making their guess, everybody's just forecasting. Of course, the professionals are going to go with their own guess. They're not going to believe you when you tell them what you think will happen. And the situation is, now that we've gone with their plan, we see what will happen. It's happening now. Now it's a level playing field. The amateurs can say, we can point to the evidence that now exists. But at this point, we're told it's too late. We already had those meetings. So, I can tell you now that pickup and drop off has gotten worse. The situation is unsafe. I'm not a traffic engineer. I can't tell you how to make a safe plan, but I can tell you that the plan that the traffic engineers came up with has not been safe.
Thank you so much for your comment. Is there anyone else in the chambers wishing to testify on these bills today? You already testified today, correct, sir? Yeah. You can't speak on behalf of anyone else, so you can speak on behalf of yourself. So we will allow you, to speak on your own behalf. He testified, right? On this? Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Thanks. It'll be only 30 seconds.
Please state your name quickly, sir. Thank you.
Jared Johnson.
State your testimony.
Yes, I'd like to speak on behalf of support Bill number 250649, City Hall bike lanes.
Okay.
Although I'm disappointed that the bill was passed on, I'm hoping that you can come to a resolution. This bill will make pedestrians safe, bicyclists safe, and it'll make drivers safe. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else wishing to testify? Seeing none, I note that for the record, a quorum of the committee is here with myself as chair, Councilmember Bass, Councilmember Ahmad, Councilmember Harity. The committee will now enter into a public meeting. The chair recognizes Councilmember Bass for a motion on bill number 250771.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and offer an amendment to Bill Number 250771. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to Bill Number 250771 be adopted.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to bill number 250771 be adopted. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, I have it. In the opinion of the chair, the motion carries and the amendments to bill number 250771 has been adopted. The chair recognizes Councilmember Bass for a motion on the amendments to bill number 250718.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I offer an amendment to Bill number 250718. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of the committee, and I move that the amendment to Bill number 250718 be adopted.
Second. Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that the amendment to Bill number 250718 be adopted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. In the opinion of the chair, the motion carries and the amendment to Bill number 250718 has been adopted. The chair recognizes Council Member Baz for a motion on bills numbers 240872, 250575, 250576, 250652, 250653, 250710, 250711, 250712, 250713, 250714, 250715, 250716, 250718 as amended, 250723, 250724, 250725, 250770, 250771 as amended, and 250772.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that all bills read into the record be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of committee be suspended to permit first reading of this bill at the next session of council.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded that all bills read into the record be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading of these bills at the next session of council. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. In the opinion of the chair, the motion carries. And bill numbers 240872, 250575, 250576, 250652, 250653, 250710, 250711, 250712, 250713, 250714, 250715, 250716, 250718 as amended, 250723, 250724, 250725, 250770, 250771 as amended, and 250772 will be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, with a further request that the rules of council be suspended to permit first reading at the next session of council. This concludes the business for the Streets and Services Committee. Thank you all for your attendance today and your patience.